What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. Got a crazy one for y'all for this late night live stream, man, out of Las Vegas. This crazy ass county official murdered the reporter who reported the news on him. Y'all looking at him right there. His name is Robert Tellers. Hey, this is just a review. Gonna go over some of the latest news clips, press conferences, everything that's current on Robert Tellers. As you can see on the right side of the screen, that's him as well. That's him as well. County official, murder suspect, same person. This is live, man. It's the Resistance. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Let's go.
I'm just a picture in the frame. Pause. I paint word pictures on the canvas of life.
I'm everywhere in public. Like I said, this is Robert Tellers. This is out of Las Vegas, county official. I'm going to get into one of these news clips, man. Let's get a little acquainted with Robert Tellers, Las Vegas. Shouts to everybody in the chat. See, the gang is all here. Hudspeth David, Ricky Allen, Perfect Sense Resistors, Free to Stay. Shariki Smith, Rhonda, Mike Ramirez, Wes Williams.
Breaking at 4, county official Rob Tellers returning home this afternoon in a paper jumpsuit. Sources tell 8 News Now investigators had spent part of the day questioning him about the murder of Review Journal investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us at 4. I'm Kirsten Joyce.
And I'm Brian Loftus.
I had to stop it right here real quick because these are the news reporters waiting for him at his house. Guess they got the latest news that DNA evidence is what connected him with the murder. But when they get to his house, he has a white jumpsuit on. That's crazy.
We have a lot to cover tonight. The 8 News Now investigators with team coverage.
David Charms here with more on what Jeff Gehrman uncovered. But first, we head out live to Vanessa Murphy. She's been outside of the home all day after police spent all morning and afternoon searching his home. Vanessa.
Detectives are zeroing in on public administrator Robert Tellers in this homicide case. The victim, investigative journalist Jeff Gehrman. Now, as far as we know, Tellers is inside this home right now. Police dropped him off a short while ago. I tried talking with him. Did you do this? Did you commit this murder? Did you do this? Tell us anything?
Why did police tow away your vehicle?
Do you have a comment? Tellers was with investigators while police searched his home as they look for clues in the stabbing death of Review Journal investigative journalist Jeff Gehrman. He was found stabbed to death outside his home Saturday. 2 vehicles were towed from the home of Tellers, one of them appearing to...
Right here, same person. This is him leaving the murder scene. I would have thought it was an old lady. And just because of the hat, I would have thought she was, from Asian culture. So, he really pulled a smooth one right here, so he thought.
be similar from this vehicle placed near the scene of the murder. Police also released this video of the suspect. Tellis and Gehrman have a history. Gehrman reporting on problems within the public administrator's office, including exposing a possible affair. Tellis then lost his bid for re-election in the Democratic primary. Now, Tellis was not happy with Gehrman's coverage. He tweeted about it. So again, that is one link police are looking at. Back to you.
Vanessa, when you tried talking with him, he was wearing a white jumpsuit. Do you know why?
Police took his clothes and then gave him that white paper jumpsuit. Again, right now, he is a free man. I want to be clear. He is not facing charges at this time. He was not arrested. Again, as far as we know, he is still inside his home here. But again, police will detective work. They took his clothes. They took at least a couple of vehicles and whatever else from this house. Back to you.
It's 5 days into the investigation.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm obviously Sheriff Joseph Lombardo. I'm here to brief you on the latest details in the homicide of review journalist, investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman.
So this is the press conference that they gave. We about to get into this. Just want to make sure it was the right one. But yeah, that's crazy. Robert Tellis, county official from out of Las Vegas, got tired of a reporter reporting the news on him. And it was word going on that there was, a hectic work style within the office. There was also some kind of sexual relations going on with Robert Tellis and another female. They'll get into more of that as we get into the press conference and everything. They're going to be very detailed in this press conference. They're going to show everything and speak about, how they got closer and closer to finding out who the murderer was. Pretty much cut and dry. I wish they did that with all public officials, but, can't have everything. Once again, shout outs to everybody. I appreciate y'all. Red Tide, Hand and Mouse, Ricky Allen, Nikki Herrera, Knowledge. Shout outs to Knowledge. Mike Ramirez, my man. Let's get into this press conference.
First and foremost, I want to offer my condolences to the Jeff's family, friends, and co-workers at the Review Journal. I want to thank our partners in the community who have helped us share crucial details with the public over the last few days. From the moment LVMPD detectives were called to the scene on Saturday morning, investigators have been working tirelessly to identify the suspect and effect an arrest. Under my direction, we enacted major case protocol Saturday to bring together the full force of LVMPD to solve this homicide. Major case protocol was first utilized in 2018. The goal is to bring together resources to maximize the investigative effort and ensure timely, clear, and consistent communication during a high-profile investigation. Additionally, large amounts of incoming information would need to be processed timely and with diligence. This has been a usual case from the beginning. The murder of an investigative journalist and the main suspect here in Clark County. Because of the relentless follow-up of our detectives and with your help, I'm here to announce the arrest of 45-year-old Robert Tellis. He was booked in the Clark County Detention Center last night on the charge of open murder. This is a terrible and jarring homicide, one that has deeply impacted Las Vegas. Every murder is tragic, but the killing of a journalist is particularly troublesome. We hope the arrest of Tellis and his subsequent prosecution will ultimately provide a sense of justice for our community and Mr. Gehrman's family. And I would like to add, our work is done in this case. Detectives are still shifting through information. So in other words, the case is still continuing. We have several leads we're still following up on to solidify the case and to put to bed other allegations. So at this point, I'd like to bring Dory Korn, captain of the Homicide Bureau, forward, and he will walk you through the timeline associated with the case. Thank you.
Good morning. As you know, we began our homicide investigation about 5 days ago on Saturday, September 3rd. This was after we received a 911 call of an unresponsive male that was found on the side of his home. Our preliminary investigation revealed that the unresponsive male was deceased as a result of stabbings. We also determined pretty quickly that the victim was Jeff Gehrman, as the sheriff said. Jeff Gehrman is a well-known investigative reporter, and that was taken into account immediately.
Listen, this guy right here, I'm gonna do some research on Jeff Gehrman, but he must have been a hell of a reporter. For this county official to do what he did, to murder this man like that, totally egregious. It was definitely out of pocket. But this must have been a hell of a journalist. So, shout out to Jeff Gehrman. My condolences to his family. But he must have really been putting the pressure on these people that he was reporting on out there in Las Vegas, because this man, Robert Tellis, he took it all the way to the point of killing him. So and I like to hear what really was going to be uncovered. You know what I'm saying? Because this is just the surface. I really like to know what Robert Tellis was into, and what Jeff Gehrman was trying to shine a light on.
Some of the other things that were developed pretty quickly by our homicide investigation was that the suspect, as you see here in the photo to my left, your right, was wearing an orange shirt with reflective stripes, a straw hat, and was carrying a duffel bag, and what was likely an attempt to either disguise his identity or conceal his identity. We also know that the suspect was walking westbound, approaching Gehrman's home on Friday, September 2nd, the day prior to us being notified. On that morning, he approached Mr. Gehrman's home and went to the side of the house. Shortly after, Gehrman came outside of the garage door and then went to the side of the house, and ultimately an altercation took place between the suspect and the victim. We believe this happened around 11:18 a.m., and at that time, our victim was stabbed multiple times. As Sheriff Lombardo pointed out, he initiated major case protocol immediately based on the circumstances, which allowed us to bring in a lot more resources to address a lot of the tips and leads and information coming in from the public. Our detectives and everyone involved in this case have been working nonstop since Saturday. Everyone involved. And on day 2 of our major case protocol, we developed a very critical lead, which was a vehicle that we identified. It was a maroon-colored GMC Denali.
Wayne Knapp
that
said
was suspiciously.
Wayne Knapp said hang him. Shout out to Wayne Knapp. What else? What else y'all think that the city of Vegas should do to Robert Tellis? What y'all think? Do they have the death penalty in Vegas, in Nevada? Does anybody know about that?
Driving around in the neighborhood on the morning of the murder, prior to the murder, and then certainly was there at the time when the murder happened. That vehicle had stopped multiple times throughout the neighborhood and was behaving suspiciously, or was suspicious. The second key piece on day 2 was we determined that the suspect wearing the orange shirt had fled in that vehicle, which connected the vehicle to the suspect.
This dude is crazy. A county official. They got cameras everywhere. Cameras everywhere. Like, he should be one of the main people to know that. Like, how he think he was just going? He got a green visor on. You can see it plain as day. Cameras pick that up all day. That's a camera's dream. Stuff that the colors like that shine. Camera glare on that all day. This dude, he's so stupid. He's on the city streets riding in the vehicle, and he pulled up and left. County official, Las Vegas, ladies and gentlemen.
As mentioned before in our earlier statements, We've been working all possible leads on this case. We've been exploring all theories and conducting simultaneous investigations into every piece of information we came across. That we're focused on early on. One was ensuring that this was not connected to a burglary series or anything of the sort. And then two, looking at any work-related grievances or conflicts related to Mr. Gehrman's work. We knew that as investigative reporter, he had written several articles, and there were different allegations and statements about potential people that would be upset about it. One in particular that we identified early on was Robert Tellis as a person of interest, because Tellis was upset about articles that were being written by Gehrman as an investigative journalist.
What he mad about? We obviously sees that he's mad. We obviously can see that. What he mad about? He mad about his life. His life was not controlled the way he wanted to be controlled, and he felt as though taking somebody out would be better. Now he mad that he caught. Look at that's shame right there. Sickening. Imagine what his family think. The burden of murdering somebody is forever.
Journalist that exposed potential wrongdoing, and Tellis had publicly expressed his issues with that reporting, and then ultimately Tellis was also upset, from what we found out later, that there was additional reporting that was pending. So at that time, we began focusing a little bit more on that as we conducted all of our investigative efforts. The other thing that was discovered by our detectives was there was a vehicle that matched a suspect's vehicle description, that maroon GMC Denali that was parked in front of Tellis's home. It was registered to his wife. And then we ultimately developed video evidence that showed that that vehicle, the GMC Denali parked in front of Tellis's home, had departed around 9 a.m. in the morning.
Dummy. Straight dummy. Did you hear what the man said?
His home. It was registered to his wife.
The vehicle was registered to his wife. I thought he'd at least get a rental or something. I mean, that's stupid too, but something. For it to not come straight back to you. He murdering people and riding around in his wife's vehicle. They said he was riding around suspiciously.
Was behaving suspiciously, or was suspicious. The second key piece on day 2.
This dude's crazy.
And working on search warrants. And then we began searching. We executed those search warrants early yesterday morning, and that involved searching Tellis's home, his vehicles, and then also searching his body to collect the DNA sample to compare it to DNA recovered during the crime. At that time, as you noticed yesterday, we were still building our case, continuing our investigation, and we were waiting on DNA results. And so Tellis was released as we continue to build our case.
Shout out to Michael Russell.
Detectives continue to work very aggressively. As the sheriff pointed out, we've built a culture around here where we expect relentless follow-up on every case we're involved in. So they were relentless in their efforts. We worked as quickly as possible. And shortly after, we developed information that indicated Tellis was driving GMC Denali the morning of the murder. We also, through the search warrant effort, we recovered a pair of shoes, as you'll see here on my screen here to the left, that matched the suspect's description. Also, as you can see, there's apparent blood on the shoes, and
I don't see the blood. Where's the blood? Is that the arrow pointing to the blood? I can't see any blood. Does anybody see any blood? Maybe I just can't see, but it's apparent blood. I don't see any blood. Well, they say it's blood. County official Robert Tellis, Las Vegas, Nevada, killed a reporter journalist that was reporting the news on him. This is one of the shoes that he discarded, okay? And they're saying it's blood. I don't see no blood, but you know what? In this instance, I believe him.
The shoes were cut, likely in a manner to try to destroy evidence. In addition to the shoes, we recovered a straw hat that was also cut.
That was the hat that he had on. That was the hat that he had on. Right there. He was just ran into woods or bushes or something and ripped their head up. It looked like he cut the shoe too. If I'm not mistaken, it looked like the shoe was cut up a little bit. The whole front is. He must have had a whole utility bag with him to take care of everything afterwards. But the whole front is taken off.
And the shoes were cut, likely in a manner to try to destroy evidence. In addition to the shoes, we recovered a straw hat that was also cut in a manner that was likely to destroy the evidence. And that straw
Shout out Charlie Dog 84.
Hat, as you can see, matches the one in the photo. Just something to point out, that black brim is actually the interior part of the hat, a sweatband, not the exterior part. But we analyzed the hat, analyzed the shoes, and then ultimately, one of the most important aspects of this investigation.
Okay, because I was about to say, I didn't see a black band around the hat. I'm like, all right now, I'm saying there's blood on the sneaker. I'm going to let y'all ride with that because this is a county official that y'all prosecute. And a good job for jumping on it. Just, I wish when it's police officers, y'all jump on it just like that. But okay, county official, I'll take that. Yeah, I pointed to that it was blood on the shoe. I'm not going to take it back. I was right there. That bottom of that screen said it was blood on the shoe. I didn't see that. And then I see this black band, but he pointed out that that's the inside of the hat and not the outside. Because I didn't see a black band when she was walking. Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Robert Tellis was walking. See, there's no black band right there. But on we go.
Aspects of this investigation was waiting on the DNA results, and we received positive DNA results that showed Robert Tellis's DNA at the crime scene. At that time, we immediately initiated our arrest operation and planning. The goal was to take Tellis into custody as safely as possible. And thanks to the men and women of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the leadership here, we were able to successfully execute that operation yesterday, and Tellis was taken into custody safely and arrested, as the sheriff talked about. I'll just quickly conclude my part by saying thank you to the homicide unit in particular. We are very fortunate in Las Vegas. We have the best homicide unit in the country with the highest solvability rate in the country. And they worked tirelessly, as the sheriff pointed out, to succeed in this case. And then there were a lot of supporting units from the lab, technicians, to our tactical teams, and everyone else involved that did a tremendous job, as well as the media. All of you really helped us when we asked for the help to get information out. You did that job for us and helped us, and the general public who provided tips and leads. So definitely appreciated. And with that, I just reiterate, it's very important. We're only 5 days into this case. So there is still a lot of effort, as the sheriff pointed out, that needs to be conducted. And there will be more facts as we continue to make progress on this case. But we do believe this is an important case, and that's why everyone involved, from the very top of our agency, is the sheriff, to the lower parts, working every single lead.
They plugging themselves in, ain't that? That's what they do. I played it for a reason, so you can hear how hard they're going to plug themselves in. Instead of being focused on the case, they're going to make sure they list every department out the ass, okay? This is what they do. They always want to, this is all mind control shit. Put them out in the forefront, make sure they're the superheroes, and watch what we do, okay? Typical bullshit.
Took this case very seriously because they know the impact it has on our community and our country as a whole. With that, we'll turn it over to questions, and depending on the questions, the sheriff will answer. Yes, sir.
Sounds like you're onto him fairly.
So they're about to go into some questions. I've watched this video earlier, and this is going to be a couple glitches. It's going to pause for a second or two and come right back. But there were some good questions that was asked within this press conference from the reporters. So I'm going to continue on with that. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate y'all rocking out with me. This is Robert Tellis, public county official from out of Las Vegas. Kill the reporter, man, because the reporter was reporting the news on him. And he didn't like the fact that he was reporting the news on him. So let's get back into this video real quick. Let's go to an ad. It's the resistance.
potential suspect. So once he was aware that you were onto him, how would you describe his demeanor, his level of cooperation?
So there's some details of the investigation we can't reveal at this time because we want to make sure we have a successful prosecution. But
that's one pause right there, so I just paused it. But shout out to Jonathan Nicola. The question that the reporter asked, if y'all didn't hear, was what was his demeanor like when they had him in custody? And straight off the bat, he said, well, there's some things that we don't want to disclose due to the nature of the case. We seen the mugshot. The mugshot said it all. Robert Tellis, look at his face. He looked like a murderer.
And everyone else involved that did a tremendous job, as well as the media and the as it case, and that's why everyone involved, from the very top of our agency, is the sheriff to the lower parts, working every single lead, took this case. We know that our victim exited through the garage door. I don't have the details on whether it was open at the time of our response.
Sorry about that, Joe. I'm just going to take it back where I left off. I missed my spot. Here we go.
But it was successful in terms of conducting simultaneous.
How would you describe his demeanor, his level of cooperation?
So there's some details of the investigation we can't reveal at this time because we want to make sure we have a successful prosecution. But
shout out Free
we
Breather.
were conducting simultaneous investigations into various leads, some related to Tellis, some related to burglaries and everything else. So can't speak to demeanor at this time, but it was successful in terms of focusing on him.
They could have spoke about that mugshot, though. That mugshot told it all. That mugshot was crazy. This mugshot right here is crazy. Like, this dude. But this face can only represent two things. I just killed somebody, or I'm being set all the way up. So, and keep in mind, it can go both ways. We don't know really nothing yet, but look like Killer to me. Look at him right here. Look like an Asian killer to me right here. I would have never thought that was him. But the car was registered that he was in. The car that he was in was registered to his wife. He mad.
This video that we're showing to what you believe was the eventual homicide?
That is video of the suspect walking to the homicide and video to or from the homicide. We have video on both angles that we've shared with the public since, and it is a casual walk even after the homicide. Yes, sir, great.
Yeah, Kenneth, I'm going to ask a quick one and then another. Did you find the orange outfit?
So at this time, we're still finishing our investigative effort. We found the straw hat and the shoes. We're still processing other evidence that was recovered from the home.
The garage door remained open, correct?
We know that our victim exited through the garage door. I don't have the details on whether it was open at the time of our response.
Was anything taken from the home or from Mr. Garner?
At this time, we do not believe that anything was taken from the home or from Mr. Garner. Yes, sir.
Sir, can you address, has he been cooperative during the interview with law enforcement? And can you also address the circumstances of him being brought out stretcher after the arrest?
So, this time, regarding our interaction with the suspect.
Once again, y'all, that's not my feed. That's the original video from when this was recorded live earlier.
But I can tell you the footage you saw him coming out on the stretcher, he had self-inflicted wounds, and we were trying to provide medical attention to help him.
Would you describe the wounds?
So at this time, I cannot describe the wounds, but we do know that they were not life-threatening. Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe the situation of Tellis being brought back home only to be arrested?
Is he trying to say that those were self-inflicted, or could he have also got stabbed as well? Because they really not telling us anything, and they leaving it open right now until they able. I don't know. I have no idea, but mighty funny that he had stab wounds, but they said it seemed to be self-inflicted, or he could have been. They could be self-inflicted. And he's trying to say that he was stabbed, or he could have got stabbed. It's just a thought.
A few short hours later.
And did the district attorney have any influence on why he was not arrested at that time frame?
So, in the last press conference, one of the things I said was that it was not just important enough for us to identify and apprehend the suspect, but we wanted to do it in a way where we could have a solid, good prosecution. So, in consultation with the district attorney's office throughout this investigation, and certainly at the time of determining release to continue to build our case. So yes.
Do you believe any of these? Do you believe there's he was working on the suspect?
Right now, we can't speculate on the motive beyond what was already discussed. We know that Tellis was very upset about Garriman's reporting already about his role as a public administrator and everything else that followed with that. Yes, sir.
So he was brought back to the home. We saw him go back in the hazmat suit, presumably because his clothes were taken. And then we sort of saw SWAT come in. He was uncooperative coming out. Is there going to be any look at the fact that an entire neighborhood was evacuated for a suspect with you were onto him. I understand you were waiting for that DNA, but that 2-hour window could have been very different. So is there going to be any look at not releasing a potential murder suspect back to his home like that?
You know, there's a reason why people from all across the United States come to Las Vegas to apply with our agents to become police officers and detectives and SWAT officers and all that. And it's because we have a very professional and effective way of how we safely take people into custody in these types of very dynamic situations. And that was proven yesterday. And then the second reason is we have a community that's very supportive. So I understand some people might be frustrated with the disruption, but the way the operation worked, the community was supportive of how we did it. And they were certainly supportive of the outcome because everyone is safe today.
Right. We certainly support you, but he was able to go into that home, and sources say he inflicted self-harm on himself. Obviously, he was taken to the hospital. So something could have happened in that 2-hour window. So I think we're all a little curious. Why was that decision not made when he just walked back into the house?
Yeah, just as I answered.
That's not something we usually see.
Sure, understood. As I answered before, we wanted to provide medical attention, which we were successful in doing so. And then we also wanted to make sure that we were consulting with our district attorney's office and ensuring a solid case to keep building evidence. And that's what we did successfully. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
How long you might have been behind this, and are there any outstanding suspects?
At this time, as the sheriff pointed out, this is 5 days into the investigation. We had a lot of success early on because the sheriff enacted major case protocol, but there's still a lot of information to go through. We gave the information that we arrested the person for the murder, but we'll still go through everything and be able to analyze that a little bit further. Yes, ma'am.
Sheriff, you said the murder of a journalist is especially troubling. Now is probably not the appropriate time to talk politics, but do you condemn...
So why are we talking politics then?
Do you condemn former President Trump's normalization of violence against journalists?
No, I think this is probably the inappropriate venue to speculate on that or opine on that. I think it needs to be stated and noted that it is troublesome because it is a journalist, and we expect journalism to be hostile for government. And when people take it upon themselves to create harm associated with that profession, I think it's very important that we put all eyes on and address the case appropriately, such as we did in this case with this expediency associated with it. But let me provide some clarification on the question on the individual returning to the house. So that's dictated by the Constitution and the NRS, and the ability for an individual to leave on their free will until we obtain enough evidence to rise to probable cause to effect an arrest. And that was the reason why that took place at that time.
Sheriff, also, did you have any personal involvement in the case beyond the special protocols that you initiated?
No, ma'am. No, I did not.
Can you explain, so after you had left the search warrant and then the one officer came back by himself, why did he come back by himself? What was his intent at that point? Was he planning to arrest the suspect at that point, or why was he there by himself?
I'm not familiar with that. Yeah.
Just very brief. So we wanted to make sure we maintained open communication with Mr. Tellis. We wanted to make sure we had a safe resolution of this. So it was our strategy to make sure we were overt and provided any channels of communication to continue as we continue to build our case.
But was it safe to have just one person there? Because a short time after that, you brought everybody in SWAT and armed. And
Well, I think it's an assumption.
We don't publicly talk about our tactics. And
He's speaking about why they brought maybe more than one department to the scene when they let the man go in this house. Actually let him change his clothes into the white jumpsuit. That's the reason why he was seen with the white jumpsuit on by reporters. But now they questioning, well, why? First it was just one person, tagging along with him as far as law enforcement. And then you just bring the SWAT, the helicopters, the whole department, probably another department with it. And what's the reason? And he responded, we don't discuss our tactics because, that would be speaking about politics as well. On how, they just wasted taxpayers' dollars just to get somebody who they pretty much already had in custody.
I assure you there was more than one person there.
Sheriff, can you talk about the actual weapon that was used in the stabbing? Was that recovered, and what was that weapon?
At this point, we have not recovered it. We continue to search for that, and that's why Captain Corin has alluded that we're continuing the investigation. We're still in short proximity to this, and obviously, all the legwork continues for the police agency and investigative functions on a case this complicated. And we have to ensure that we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's to ensure a successful prosecution.
Was Mr. Tellez interviewed? Did he give a statement, or was he represented by an attorney at that time?
He was interviewed. He was consensually interviewed, voluntarily interviewed. He had the opportunity to obtain an attorney. He chose not to, and subsequent termination of the interview, he was let go at that time.
Can you talk about the Las Vegas Review-Journal involvement in this case?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because they were instrumental in notifying us of the next of kin.
Shout out to Renetta Williams, the Queen.
For Mr. Gehrman, so that we could do those appropriate notifications of the family members before we made this public. And secondly, they were instrumental in providing us for information on his cases that he was working previously and currently associated with this case. And Captain Corin alluded to other directions we were pursuing because we didn't know absolutely at this point if Tellis was the involved suspect. We had to look at different crimes committed in the neighborhood. We had to pursue every aspect. And the Review-Journal provided us some additional information on a previous case that we had worked and made public information in the public space as to MO, dress, and I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And we had to run that to bed as a result of the RJ. I'll use the RJ, bringing it forward.
Is Ellis still hospitalized?
I don't know.
Currently, he's at Clark County Detention Center.
Captain.
FBI used because of his position and being a public official?
I'm sorry?
Was the FBI used at all for his arrest as a public official?
No, we didn't feel the need to bring the FBI in as if it had gone across state line or rise to a different level of electronic evaluation, we very well much brought in the FBI.
Sure.
I'll answer one more question.
You have remarkable video of the man you identify as the suspect approaching the attack scene. Do you have video of the attack?
We have some distorted video associated with the attack, and we are in the process of clarifying that video as we speak.
Captain, when did Tellis actually become a suspect in this case? And when you came, I assume you didn't know when you had the press conference and you were asking for help, but when you had that press conference a couple of days ago, was he already on your radar?
So
this will be the last question.
Part of major case protocol is to look at all leads at the same time. So we had a lot of personnel investigating very early on. Tellis is a person of interest. The exact time of when it becomes a primary suspect or secondary suspect is really irrelevant because when we over-focus on one area, we start losing evidence and losing other things. So the reality is, very early on into the major case protocol, we were doing a lot of things simultaneously, and that's what gave us the success here.
And
sorry, we're just...
can I just ask one quick question?
Wrap it up, but we will have more information come out soon. We have a lot more facts on this case, so just give us some time. It's only been 5 days. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
This is breaking news from Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. King. You'll be marked as attorney, not of record.
Shout out to Rod N.
In front of the court for Dallas Menace. Mr. Shetler, you as well.
Your Honor, yes, thank you. Shetler 4747. After speaking to Mr. Tellis, I can confirm his counsel this afternoon.
Understood, and that will be reflected in the record. Mr. Scout?
Thank you. It's my request that pursuant to NRS 178.484 that he be held without bail pending his initial appearance in justice court. And the statute says that a person arrested for murder first degree may be admitted to bail unless there's proof evident, a presumption great, and then a finding by yourself that the evidence, the nature, and circumstances of the offense are such that the conviction is likely. And so based on the statute, I'm going to highlight some of the evidence and the nature and circumstances of the case that justify a no bail hold on this case. The victim, 69-year-old Jeff German, was stabbed 7 times, and we don't know everything at this point, but what we do know is there's a history of articles written by Mr. German regarding the defendant and his time in the public administrator's office. Months after losing the primary, I believe as a direct result of these articles, highlighting the misfunctioning in the office as well as an illicit relationship with a coworker. The victim was found stabbed 7 times on September 2nd. Maroon Denali in the
shout outs Ann and Mouse.
The neighborhood, casing the house, the driver seen getting out of the vehicle, going to the victim's house. The victim, Jeff, comes out of his house and is attacked by the defendant, stabbed 7 times. And based on the vehicle, the police locate the vehicle. It matches a vehicle owned by the defendant's wife. Based on their investigation and the DNA recovered from the victim's hands under his fingernails, they do identify the DNA as the defendant's. And so they know he's the suspect. They didn't know this at the time of his interview. They had to release him. But they did learn that shortly after the interview, and they go to take him into custody. He barricades himself for a short time, and when the SWAT goes in, they do find him with superficial cuts on his arms.
Shout out to Red Tie. Red Tie said, this man, his face is still tense. He had no affection for the journalist exposing the truth. That's true. His face, I didn't see that in his face in those pictures. Did y'all? I put some pictures of him, and I didn't see that mean, smug mug in those pictures. Not at all. I'm just going to check and see if we could. Look at that. There's no smug. There's no baldness of the face going on. Look at that. You don't see none of that. You can't see any of that. But when he appears in court, and that mug shot, it was like, that's what I said, it was just like written all over his face with that mug shot. It was like you caught. County official Robert Tellis, Las Vegas.
Official cuts on his arms. But the nature and circumstance, see, that's the evidence. The nature and circumstances, again, are the articles written. He left his cell phone at his residence. he went fully covered. A wide-brimmed hat, long-sleeve shirt, pants in 110-degree weather. He cased the neighborhood for over an hour. He hid in his vehicle on the side of the house. And again, with the published articles regarding a public figure in the public administrator's office, it ruined his political career, likely his marriage, and this was him lashing out, the defendant lashing out at the cause of the unraveling of his life at this point. So we're asking that he be held no bail pursuant to NRS 178.484, according to the facts and circumstances as laid out in the report. Thanks.
All right, thank you, counsel. Do you want to respond today?
Your Honor, I would reserve my response to that. I did explain to Mr. Tellis that what we're going to do today is wait until we come back to court.
Sure, absolutely. And I would imagine the facts will probably be flushed out further by both parties in the case. I do have to make a finding, however. I am going to order the defendant detained based on NRS 178.484, specifically subsection 4. Being that the facts that I have before me in the 4-page report, which were the only facts I considered as far as probable cause for the open murder and the degree of murder, which I did find the proof is evident and presumption is great, primarily based on the vehicle used that appears to have driven to the victim's home, from the defendant's home, and then back to the defendant's home during the time of the murder. The fact that, according to this report, it's alleged that the defendant's cell phone was, activity was terminated immediately prior to the time of the murder, during the murder, and right after the murder. The fact that Metro allegedly discovered during the execution of the search warrant a pair of shoes and hat that matched those depicted in their surveillance. Also, of course, incredibly suggestive as it relates to proof is evident and presumption great is quite chilling as well. The defendant's DNA is alleged to have been recovered from the hands of the victim, presumably during the time in which he was fighting for his life, which was supported by the report indicated on page 2. He had several defensive wounds on his hands and arms, the victim that is. And lastly, as it relates to the first-degree murder, it appears from this report, Mr. Tellis was waiting and called the victim over to the side of his own home, and according to this surveillance, ended up mounting the victim, and of course he suffered injuries and then death. And so that's the finding I make for my order of detention. Mr. Shetler, we'll give you a turnaround date of next week, and like I said, you can further address it at that time.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
September 13th, Department 7, 7:30 a.m.
I'd ask the provisional appointment in my office be set aside, and I doubt that any discovery will find its way to me, but if it does, I'll be sure to get it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Canis. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
You too, Mr. Shetler. Take care.
It's crazy out there in Vegas. You got county officials killing reporters, man. Robert Tellis driving around in his white car to and from the murder scene. I'll be damned. Well, seems like he just slid down Razor Blade Lane and landed in Alcohol River. It's going to be a hot stop for his ass. Shouts to everybody in the chat, man. Appreciate y'all rocking out with me. Knowledge. You have rights. Cops have duties. Perfect sense. Resistor is free to stay. And in Mouse, Michael Russell. Pamela Brown. Renetta Williams, the queen, all the way from Wynne, Arkansas. Red Tide. Rob N. Make sure you have a good night. Be safe. Fellas, always remember to record. Ladies, get yourself a dash cam. It helps out at the end. I'm out.